Welcome back to Inspired Life Virtual Retreat, Soulful Purpose. I'm so pleased to be joined here today with Elisabeth Villiger Toufexis. She is an author and also a life coach. And I am just so pleased you could join us today in our discussion in how, really living your soulful purpose can change and transform, uplift your life. And I would love to start with taking a couple full body breaths together and just anchoring in this kind of sacred space. I'd just like to take a moment to invite each and every one of you to just set your own personal intention for our time together. And this way you're able to really extract from the conversation what you're needing in your own life to really move yourself forward. And I also would just want to thank you. Thank you for showing up for this discussion. And, when we have the courage to really step into our own purpose in our life, it actually has a ripple effect. And people around us are inspired and intrigued to really investigate what their purpose is. And they start to think, well, maybe I could step into my purpose as well. And so, there's really a planetary movement that you're joining when you really align to your own purpose. And so with that, Elisabeth, would you share with us a bit about your work, please?
Well, first of all, Maggie, I want to thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
I am very happy to be here, and I am very happy to share with you. And may I say my purpose, what I hope for this exchange?
Please.
I would like to bring as much light and blessing to as many people that I possibly can.
Yes.
Because
thank you for that.
We all need each other. We're all one, and we all depend on each other. And so it's important that we look after each other.
Yes.
Now, about me, I am a life coach, as you said, and an author. I have done many, many things in my life. I have a bit of a tough beginning because I was an unwanted child. So it took me a while to come to terms with that. But I was a tough cookie, and I decided to, instead of staying and wallowing in my story, I decided to go and see the world. I became a tour guide. I traveled all over the world for 11 years. I speak 6 languages.
Wow.
And then I got married, and I brought up 2 beautiful children who are now grown up. And when they left, when they had gone, and I felt that I had so much knowledge from being a tour guide, from bringing up children. I also worked as an interpreter for the police. I had to do with so many different people. I felt that I wanted to use my knowledge of people, my knowledge of different kinds of people. So I started training as a coach. And that's why I'm here now, because I started also sharing my knowledge. I wrote a book about coaching and about the soul. My book is called The Soul Kit, which is very appropriate for this meeting because we're talking about souls here. So yeah, that's more or less what I do.
Beautiful. And so would you share with us, like, when you hear soulful purpose, what does that really conjure up for you in your mind? What?
A soulful purpose, I think, is finding out what my purpose is, and also respecting that my purpose is not the same purpose as your purpose. I think a lot of one of the most important things in life is to respect each other's choices, and respect, come from an unjudgmental space, and understand that we all have a different story, and that before we judge somebody, send them love, and try to understand why they are the way they are, because we tend to judge so quickly. And I think that's the opposite of a soulful purpose. A soulful purpose is accepting everybody the way he is, the way she is. And maybe if they ask for our help, give it, or just send them love and light, because some people do not want our help.
Yeah, and so really kind of embracing our individuality, right? And I'm thinking of like the diversity in an ecosystem, right? And it's like biologists look at biodiversity as a cornerstone in how healthy an ecosystem is, right? And so it's the same thing in our culture. It's like the diversity of each person is what adds to the richness of our culture. And when we become very heterogeneous, like everyone is independent in what they're doing, then we have so much more brilliance as a society, right? Because
yes, absolutely,
we think about when we're young, if we're not having the guidance to really step into our purpose and know what that is, then it's very easy for our genius to really like go dormant, basically. And you think of all of that untapped potential within society. And right now we are facing so many different challenges on the planet, right? And
yes,
they're very collective challenges, right? And I just
yes,
think like if everyone was really, if we were fostering this in every child, and if every adult was reconnecting to what they were passionate about, we would have probably all of these myriad of solutions to our challenges right now, And so it's really, I think that there's a level of responsibility at some point when you become conscious enough to really owning your purpose,
yes. I agree with you. And I also, I have learned one thing: the more I have traveled and the further I have gone, the more I have understood that we are all the same. We all have the same need. We have a need for safety. We all want to be safe, and we all want to be healthy. And I think it's
Mm-hmm.
all about respect and tolerance, is accepting each other's differences and embracing our similarities.
Yes, yes. And I think at some level also claiming like the rebellious nature of our soul, if that makes sense. This part of us that deep down we don't want to conform to just society's like kind of prerequisites of how we're supposed to be, right? Like I see my daughter who's 4, and the last thing she wants to do is conform, you know?
Yes. And then what do we do? You see, like that's the age when children have this amazing confidence to be themselves, to be who they want to be. And then we cut their wings in a way. We put them in a mold, and we try to make them the way we want them to be. And that's, in the first 6 years, children are basically just downloading, and they are watching us. And when we don't allow them to be who they are, who they want to be, then we are actually, we're not doing damage. I don't want to say that we are doing damage, but we are stopping something beautiful. I mean, when you look at children, when they do role play, they believe that they can do anything. They believe that they can be anything. And then we come with this crazy phrase like, no, that's not possible. This is not for us. We are not the kind of people. and so on. Those phrases, those limiting beliefs that we put in these children's belief system at a very, very early age. And when they are later on, when they are grown-ups and when they have all those limiting beliefs, it takes a lot of work to get rid of them.
Yes, yes. And I see that within myself, like with my daughter, sometimes my own mind is like last night, she wanted to use this very nice wrapping paper that I bought to wrap a present for her caregiver. And part of me was like, oh my gosh, that is like $7 worth of gift wrap right there. And that's my own conditioning, right? And I have to stop myself and say, but you know what? I would go buy her a toy for $7 that she might play with for 15 minutes. So I don't really actually do this, but you know, that would feel culturally okay. But my culture, my conditioning is like, oh my gosh, my expensive gift wrap. I can go buy more gift wrap. I can go.
Yeah.
And so it's very insidious, right? It's very like, it's all of the little times that we tell them, no, you're being wasteful. Imagine she has this incredible, she wants to give someone a gift, and this is her creative expression. Imagine if I imposed my belief system, this is wasteful. So I'm basically telling her that her creativity is a waste of resource.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And that
And
may stick. That may stick for a
and
long
that makes,
time. And that may, yeah. Yeah.
because at that age, they're learning what is appropriate, right? And so they're getting all of that conditioning. And so as a parent, it's our job to say, you know what, that could be the best $7 worth of gift wrap we ever wasted, you know?
Yeah. Yes. And I think it's also about explaining to her in this case that this is very special wrapping paper. And you may say that it's valuable, maybe not use the word, you know, that it costs a lot, or it's
Yeah.
worth a lot, it's valuable, but the person who is getting the gift is worth this paper.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I have always believed that, you know, we can communicate with children. This is what many parents don't do, because they
Yes.
think that they don't understand. They understand everything and they hear everything. And I think
Yes.
communication at every age, communication is key, is the most important thing. All the things that are unsaid are the problem, not the things that are said.
Yes. And so people who may be listening who are feeling disconnected from their own purpose, right? There is a place, either if you feel comfortable doing this for yourself or getting some guidance from a life coach, someone as yourself, because we can actually have this dialogue with our own inner child, and we can actually start to explore the things that we left because they weren't valued, and there wasn't, because our parents didn't see the value in it that we placed on it, if that makes sense. Like, it was so paramount and important to us, but to our parents, maybe it didn't resonate with them, and so they didn't value it. And so we can actually go back and have that conversation with our inner child and reconnect with our purpose and say, you know what, your purpose and your soul's mission is valuable in the planet, is valuable at this time, and it really doesn't need to make sense to other people. I mean,
No.
the thing is, if you believe in it and you have the confidence, other people will get on board because of the vibration that you're holding around it. So if you really claim, right, if you claim your place in the world, other people will be like, whoa, she's, you know.
Exactly. But this is exactly, you know, we have to walk our talk, because there's a lot of people doing all sorts of, you know, life coaching or whatever. But it is very important that we actually do what we say. And
Yes.
I also coming back to parenting and children, you know, our parents or our educators or whatever, whoever had an influence on bringing us up, they did the best they knew with the resources available. That's what they
Exactly.
knew, you know. So I
Exactly.
think an important part there is also to forgive them,
Yes.
if necessary, forgive them, and then you can, you know, then you start working on your inner child. And there are so many techniques that you can use. There are so many different ways that you can actually embrace that inner child and talk to your child, to yourself, and you can fix things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true because really, I mean, to take it at a quantum level, right? There is no time space differentiation. So
No.
your inner child is actually existing simultaneously with you. So there's always value in going back and having those conversations because really, even as an adult, we still have a very vibrant part of us that is childlike if we're healthy, that
Yes.
is imaginative, that is creative, that doesn't see limitations. You know, and this is really the landscape of an entrepreneur, right?
Yes.
The
Yes.
landscape of an entrepreneur is like doing the things that haven't been done, paving the new pathways. So it's like you need a very healthy inner child to be an entrepreneur because you kind of have to take that leap of faith that the child is always ready to take in life, that they don't see the they don't see the limitations that we as adults have put on our reality. And
Totally.
so
And
it's
another,
like,
sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
well, it's like, and so in tapping into our soulful purpose, we really need to get our inner child on board. Like we really, it's a huge resource for us of, like I said, of creativity, of confidence, of just like, you know, being a superhero. Like my daughter plays, she is a superhero like all of the time. And it's like, even as entrepreneurs, we're really taking on the problems of the world and creating solutions. That's what entrepreneurs do. So it's like using your uniqueness as a soul to solve the problem that feels appropriate for you to come and solve, and then sharing that gift to the world and monetizing it basically.
Yeah, that's right. And another thing that we need to learn from our children by watching our children is living in the now. A child lives in the now. There is no past and there is no future. And you know what we do when we shower, for example, instead of watching the water go down and watching I always imagine that all my worries and all my tension from the day goes down that drain now. So like have a mindful shower. But most of us don't do that. While we are having a shower, we're already thinking of what we're going to do the next day, or if your shower is in the morning, what am I going to do now? We don't eat mindfully, we don't shower mindfully, we don't live mindfully enough. And I think we can learn that from children. When you watch a child play, this child is here now and nowhere else.
Yes, and I think from some of my studies in Vedic science, which is the ancient wisdom from India, is like in the present moment is the only place of action. And within the present moment, you have access to all the totality of all consciousness. But as soon as you jump out of the present moment, you've really given up a lot of your power in creation, if that makes sense. And so
Yes.
if you're in the past or if you're in the future, and obviously there's a merit in going into the past and consciously healing something, right? It's not that energy. Or there's merit in consciously going to the future, visualizing what you want, making active steps towards that. So that's functional. But if you're just running a tape of the past or running a tape of the future, you're really giving up a lot of your vitality and your creative power to past circumstances or future circumstances that may never even happen, worrying about future
Exactly.
things that may never even happen. And so in that present moment is really where we can co-create our reality with source, because
Yes.
every solution is available in that present moment, because that's where all the energy is existing. And so I love this idea of borrowing that mind frame from our children, of like
Yes.
just being in the here and now, you know?
Yes.
And
Very important.
I know this is a bit like not off topic, but there is a level of faith and trust in being in the present moment. Like, you have to trust source or spirit or God, whatever that is for you, that if you're in the present moment, you will be okay. Do you know what I mean? Like
You
that
are
you have,
okay.
you,
Yes. Yes, I am okay. And this is so true. And as you said before, going in the past or going into the future consciously, yes. But you see, 95% of everything we do all day is driven by the subconscious mind. So we don't do it consciously. We are just, when we don't take charge of our thoughts, we are just like a sail on a sailboat in the wind, and we are just blown from each direction. But if we take charge and if we do things consciously, it's us setting the sail and we decide on the destination.
yes, yes, 100%. Because ultimately, and I think that this is something that has been left out of a lot of our kind of, or not left out, but kind of overshadowed in a lot of our religious traditions, is that we are creating our reality with source. Our
Absolutely.
reality is not happening to us. We are actually molding it with our thoughts, with our vibration, with our energy. Yes, things are happening. You know, I'm in California, so I'm living in a smoky world right now, right? And so that's happening, but what can I do with that? What can I, you know, so I don't get my forest walk in like I'm, you know, craving. I did it yesterday. So I'm going to have to get more creative, right? I'm going to have to dig deeper. I'm going to have to say, okay, how am I going to get my workout in, you know?
The
But
power is
that's,
always in how you react. The power, because you cannot choose the circumstances, but you can choose, your choice is how to react. And you can't go to the forest, you bring the forest to your sitting room and you do your squats or your walk there.
yeah, or dance, or, you know, figure it out, but not become victim,
No.
victim of the
Yeah.
circumstance, right? But rise to the occasion, you know?
Yes, and use it to your advantage.
Yeah, right.
I
Because
have
maybe I'll, yes.
I've never been more creative than during this COVID situation. It really, really, because I travel a lot. I used to travel a lot for work because I speak, and also because I still work as an interpreter at conferences. And my wings were cut. I couldn't travel anymore. So instead of sitting here and crying that I can't travel, I just became very creative. I started recording online courses, did a lot of Zoom meetings, and so on, because it's your choice. Your choice is
It's your
to,
choice.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And so, you know, it relates back into people finding their purpose, because they can say, oh, I don't know what my purpose is, or I don't have a purpose, you know? And it's like, yes, I understand that's a starting point. And from the starting point, there's a lot of resources that you can look at, you know, looking at what were the things that really lit you up as a child? What were the things that you were really intrigued with as a child? Or what were the things that your parents did? Because a lot of times I think as souls, we come in under a lineage of tools and gifts that we want, that help us with our purpose. So there's a field of study called epigenetics, and this is how we actually biologically we inherit also the intellect of our parents. It's not just our, disease predisposition or the color of our hair. We actually inherit their intellect, their emotional state, all of these things. So those can be clues along the way of really, how do I find my purpose? And then the next thing is, how do I step into my purpose? And so
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, could you kind of help us to understand, how did you find your purpose as a life coach, as an author of, this Soul Kit book? How did that unfold for you?
Well, it's actually a very interesting story because it goes back a long time. When I was a tour guide in the US, I used to stop in a shopping mall near Fort Myers. And I remember the day when my clients were walking around, and I was in a bookstore. I was looking at books, and I picked up this book. Sometimes books speak to you, you know which one you have to choose. And
Yes.
it was The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. And I bought this book, and I had never heard at that time, I was 29 years old, I had never heard that I had a conscious or a subconscious mind. And I
Yes.
went to the hotel and I dropped off my clients and I started reading this book. And I started getting more and more fascinated. I don't think I slept that night. And I understood that I have power over my life. Life is not happening to me. I can choose. I can set goals. It was like a real revelation. And that
Yes.
somehow, that knowledge, that understanding, I just thought it's a long time ago and it took me a long time to do it, but I thought I need to share this. I need to make people help people understand that they are not victims of their circumstances. And for example, like epigenetics, yes, we are given a certain amount of genes, we are given a certain amount of maybe intellectual genes as well, but it's the environment that we choose. How do we want to live? What do we want to surround ourselves? What thoughts do we want to choose? How do we want to look at the world? How do we treat other people? It's our choices over and over again. And I think that was my biggest, that was the moment in my life, one of those moments in time when I realized that, yes, my life is mine and it's up to me. And finding a purpose, I think when you think it's about values, what are your values? What would you chain yourself to a bus for? Or what would you, or another way to find out your purpose is when you notice sometimes that you've done something and an hour or 2 hours have passed and you haven't noticed that the time has gone so quickly. That's
Yes.
that's the purpose. That's when you do something. And I'm not talking about watching a movie, that's a different thing. I'm
Yeah.
talking about doing something thoughtful, something creative. That's when you realize, wow, it could be many things. It can be baking. When you are like so passionate about something that you are in the kitchen for 2 hours and you haven't noticed that those 2 hours have gone by, that is the flow. That's your purpose. That's part of your purpose.
I completely agree, because it's like your soul's energy is carrying the action, right? It's like there's a flow coming from your soul that's carrying the action. And so your mind is not as, like, it's engaged at a certain level, but it's like it's finally like the servant of your soul, right?
Yes, yes,
and
yes.
and so I love this idea of like being carried away,
Yes.
into the creative mind and the creative flow of what you're doing. And I resonate with that, because for me, that's like writing. I love, like, if I have something I'm really lit up about to write, and I feel so, like, afterwards too, I feel so energized, right?
That's amazing.
Like,
So that's definitely your purpose. That's your flow.
yeah. And then taking that and saying, like, finding For me, so I love doing that, but then obviously you have to create like a livelihood around that. And there's parts of that I don't necessarily love, like marketing, things like this. Doesn't
Selling.
light me up as much. And so the beautiful thing is you don't have to do every part of your business. You don't have to do every part of it. You can stay in your creative zone and you can really outsource a lot of the other parts that you need to get the train going. And so I'm bringing this up because if you love baking and you're like, yeah, but how am I going to open a bakery or something? Well, maybe you don't need to open a bakery. Maybe you just become a baker for someone else, or maybe you get a general manager and you bake stuff and they manage the bakery for you. So what I'm trying to say is, like, in this realm of soulful purpose and in this kind of business system that I've created, so the purpose is really the water element. It's really the source of your business. Allow yourself to be in that creative flow before you start rationalizing, how am I going to do every part of the business, or I don't like accounting, or creating, because that is your internal critical parent again coming in and stopping you. So it's like, say, wait, I'll get to that. I'll get to that.
Yeah,
But let
yeah,
me just be in this creative flow, of my
mhm.
purpose. And
But isn't that what we do? We do that so often. And it's this, I always say fear, because it's fear that hits. It's fear that comes
mhm,
in when you think, let's continue using the baking example. Like you are in the flow, this is your purpose, but then your fear tells you, hey, how are you going to live from baking? How are you going? And I always say my one of my phrases, fear is a dream killer. We
yes,
kill the dream before we even start. And
yes,
one thing that we need to do, we need to try, we need to fail, we need to fall over and stand up again. Because what we see on social media, what we see in the world, all those successful people, they did not get successful overnight. It
mhm,
took them
mhm.
years. It took them years to learn what they know. It took them years to fail as well, to try. Very, very rarely somebody, okay, we have, these occasional overnight successes, but in general, successful people take a long time to become successful.
Yeah, and one thing I want to say about this is that success overnight often then can also leave overnight. And
Yes.
when you build something over time, you get a much more solid foundation in your business so that then you can really stand on it with more certainty. Um, I'm thinking of my father, who had a manufacturing company, and he had a couple very big accounts, right? And so when he went to sell his company, he really had to market it in a very specific way, because actually, even though his business was very profitable and he was doing very, very well, I think they did over 20 million in sales a year, right? They did very, very well, but their company was very vulnerable, because if they had lost one of these accounts, that would have been, 20% of their business, right? And so I'm bringing this up because sometimes it's much better to have many small things and small, consistent growth where you're really snowballing, because then you you have just a more solid foundation to stand on than, sure, you open up your business, you're baking, we're going with baking, you get your Whole Foods account, right? And you think you hit the jackpot. Well, that's a lot that you're going to have to scale up to overnight. And then if you lose that account, you can go bankrupt, right? It's just an example. So it's like, don't be, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, don't be scared to start small. Don't be scared to start small with what you have. There's a lot of community baking places where you could go bake your goods in, like, in a kitchen that's certified. you know, and under a certain amount, at least in the US, you can get like a cottage cooking license where you could actually do it in your house. So what I'm trying to say is like, start where you're at and just start doing it. You know, maybe you just have a social media account and you make cookies for your friends' birthday parties, you know, or you do holiday cookies, or you start out like this, and then you get a grocery store account, and then you know, and so when your rational, critical mind wants to come in, just say, wait, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. You know, let's just start here. Let's follow our passion, and let's let it evolve, you know.
That's true. That is so important, and that is why so many businesses fail, because people give up too quickly. People give up too easily. We
Yes.
you know, not, how do you say, Rome wasn't built in one day. It takes a while, and it takes a few hits, it takes a few failures, but if you are consistent, consistency is key, consistent and hopeful, and yeah, I think we're going to end up baking, Maggie.
Yeah. I think that's what we've decided, Elisabeth. You know, I think that that is such a profound thing, because again, going back to our conditioning as children, you know, we see failure as we're wrong, we don't have value, we don't have worth, we're not good at this. You fail, you're not good at math, you're not good at this. And that's actually not true at all. The reality is, you know, the reality is this: if you're not good at math, eventually there will be a calculator for you. You know what I mean? So it's like we do such detriment to our souls in this educational system sometimes by making children feel like if they're not the top of the class at something, they have less value. Well,
Yeah.
maybe you are just, maybe even they don't even know what you're good at all. It might not even be offered in school. I see my little one, you know what she's claimed she's going to be when she gets older? She's going to be an inventor. She's going to be an inventor. And you know what? She makes machines and contraptions and repurposes things constantly. And I thought, good for you. Like, you claimed it. You claimed
That's
it for
amazing.
yourself, you
Yes,
know?
yes,
And
yeah.
you do it. And she makes, like, the other day she took this air pump, this plastic air pump for one of her toys, and she decided she was going to make a flower blaster. And so she would put the flowers in the end of the air pump and she'd blast them across the yard. And I'm like, that's a beautiful invention.
But you have to let her, you see, you have to continue letting her, and allowing them to try. I mean, I always use this example. I use the example of a baby that learns, because I always say we give up too easily. A baby that learns how to walk and falls over 100 times. Have you ever heard a baby say, oh no, that's not for me. I don't think I'll be able to do that. I'm
Right.
giving up here.
Yes. Right. And
No,
say, I think I'm not going to walk. I'm just going to crawl. I'm just
exactly.
going to keep crawling.
No,
And
but then
yeah, and they also, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. They also don't take it on as that they're bad or wrong or anyway imperfect.
we tell them afterwards. It's us who is conditioning them into, you know, they, as long as a child, they just try and try and try. I mean, I have watched my children. They persist until it works. Of course, when you tell them, oh, stop, it's never going to work. Yeah, that's when they stop.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's so true. It's so
Yeah,
true. And
yeah.
so, just in wrapping up this gorgeous, beautiful conversation, what do you think the most profound gift you've really been given in stepping into your purpose as an author, as a life coach, as a travel aficionado?
Well, my personal gift, well, I come from the point of kindness. I believe in kindness. kindness is my superpower. When somebody asks me what my superpower is, it's kindness. And I have learned that no matter where you go, again, because I've worked in many, many different countries and on all continents. And I have learned that when you ask somebody kindly about something, you always get it. It's very
Yeah.
rare that somebody that, okay, I mean, there is always, there is exceptions, of course. And
Yeah.
people may now say, oh, she's naive or she's stupid. And, there are bad people in this world. I have made, my experience in life is that when you are kind, people will be kind to you. When you love life,
Yeah.
life will love you.
Yes, I love that. And I think too, it's like I was talking to a friend the other night, and she was having trouble with the computer, right? And she was kind of going down the spiral of like, you know, and I was like, maybe take a moment, stop doing the computer and just believe that it's going to work. And I think that's the same thing with kindness. It's like if you come at it with an open heart and you're saying like something, because kindness is really generosity, right? It's
Yeah.
like coming with a generous spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Then people want to open the doors for you, you know?
Yes. Yes. And when you
And
ask people, people always want to help you. That's another thing that I have learned. When we need something, when we need help, when we need to do something, ask. People love to help. But we have this thing about not wanting to ask. This fear. What are they going to think if I ask? Asking for help is a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness.
yes. And so collaborate, ask, and bring in people. If you are the baker, find your general manager because someone
Yes, or
wants
the
to do that.
accountant. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you so much for this conversation, Elisabeth.
It was a pleasure.
And I would love to just kind of once again breathe together and just kind of ground this conversation in and then like send it out as a prayer and a blessing. And may all beings everywhere be happy and free. And may our thoughts, words, and actions contribute to the happiness and freedom of all beings everywhere. And thank you again, Elisabeth. Thank you for your openness and your vulnerability and all of the work you've done to be able to share with us about your
I
subtle
thank
purpose.
you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be with you.
My
And
pleasure.
I'll see you in the bakery.
Yes, I love it. See you in the bakery.